Our topic for today will be looking at chemistry 1502. The topic for today is Alkenes reaction. We will be looking at a specific reaction which is halogenation. Lesson 101. Let us start. Before we can start with the reaction, let us review the organic compounds which falls under alkenes. What are those compounds? We know very well that the ending name for alkenes is ENE, and then we know that we distinguish them by looking at a double bond. Like for example, we have ethene, we have prop-1-ene, another example would be butene. It's actually pentene because you can see that we have 5 carbons, and then the location of the double bond is also important. So these are the examples of the alkenes. We also have a lesson video whereby it covers the whole functional group. It explains this type of a group in detail. So in this lesson we'll be looking at the reaction of this particular functional group, but we will be looking at halogenation. Now, looking at this name, you can see that this halo, actually we can say halogen, simply means that this reaction will involve those elements which you find in group number 7 or 17 on the periodic table. Then you should know that when we talk about those halogens, we are referring them to, we normally in organic chemistry we donate them as X, but we are going to be looking at the diatomic molecule form of these halogenations. So those halogenations will be, for example, Br2 or iodide molecule or fluorine. So these are the halogens which are most common in organic chemistry. Now in this lesson you should understand that you're not going to be looking at the mechanism in basic or in detail. You're just going to be looking at the basics of this reaction. You should know that when you talk about halogenations of alkenes, we are talking about when we add these halogens onto an alkene to form a product. Like I said, we are just going to be going through the basics of this reaction. In the next lesson video, we'll be looking at a mechanism. I just happen to believe that it is much simpler when we introduce a certain topic or concept, starting with the basics, and then once you understand the basics, we can get into detail on how we come about deriving that particular product. So like I said, halogenation of alkenes is when we introduce these halogens onto an alkene reactant as part of the reactant. So let us look at our first example. Suppose we are reacting a butene. It's actually but2-ene. We are reacting it with Br2. The concept is simple. When we add a diatomic molecule onto alkene, a diatomic halogen molecule to alkene, you should know this. Since we have 2 Br, we're going to start by showing it as Br. Let us actually write or draw the Lewis structure for this, and then this would be our butene. Okay, the procedure is we are only going to add 2 halogen atoms to the carbon atoms on a double bond. So from our alkene, let us identify those carbons with double bonds. So you can see that we have this carbon here and this carbon here. It's simple. The instruction or the procedure is simple. We simply look at the double bond carbons, and then that is where we are going to add our halogens, or we can write it like this. So the first halogen will take the carbon, the first carbon on the double bond. The second halogen will take the second carbon on the double bond. So the product here, we are going to have, let me write it like this, so that we can remember that we are not going to focus on the mechanism for now. This is an introduction to know the different types of these reactions. So like I said, this is the first carbon, this is the second carbon. So what will actually happen is that the first bromine atom, by the way, the double bond will break, and then we're going to have our first bromine here, our second bromine here. Remember the double bond was here. Then looking at the carbons which were involved in this double bond, it was this one and this one. So you simply put those halogens. Since you have two of them, one of them will come here, the second one will come here. That's just it. It is not involving any rule like Zaitsev rule and Markovnikov. Let us look at the second one. Looking at the second one, suppose we have this. Let me use a different color here. By the way, this is Cl2. Then you can go ahead and pause the video, work out this question and play the video. Now looking at this, you can see that the carbons which are involved in the double bond is this one and this one. So we simply focus on them and then we write the product. Remember that the double bond is no longer there. So the first chlorine atom will be here. Let me actually do this. The second chlorine atom will be here. So we have Cl, Cl. So we don't even look at the most stable carbocation ion. We simply look at the carbons which are involved in the double bond, and then we put those atoms. Because remember that for a double bond, we only have two carbons which are involved in a double bond. Like looking at the previous example, this one and this one. So each carbon that is involved in the double bond will take one halogen. Let us look at question number 3, or example number 3. For the sake of practice, and then we add this, we add it with, let us use Br again. So in this case, looking at the product, remember, only focus on the carbons involved in the double bond. So we have this carbon and this one. So it simply means that each carbon will take the bromine atom. Remember, this methyl was already there, so we simply put it and then we get rid of the double bond. So the first Br will come here, the second one will come here. Let us write it like this. So we have Br here, we have Br here. I hope you got this one correct. For the sake of practice, let us go to the next one. Remember, the next lesson video based on halogenation will be looking at the mechanism, how we come about getting these products. So this one, we can write it as Br, Br. Identifying the carbons, we can see that we have this carbon here. The ones which are involved in the double bond, we have this carbon here and this one. Then from here, we can simply get rid of the double bond. Our first Br will be here, the second one will be here. Done. Our next question, let us look at then we put a double bond here. Then we have Cl2, which we can write it as Cl. Then the product, we identify, we have this carbon here and this one. Then we can simply remove the double bond. The methyl, it is still there. Our first Cl will be here, our second one will be here. So we have Cl. Done. So these are the basics of halogenation. Very simple. You simply identify the carbons which are involved in double bond, then you simply put your halogens. Each carbon will take halogen. In the next lesson video based on this halogenation series, we'll be looking at the mechanism. That's it for this lesson video. This is Swahula SJ. Thank you very much.